If I was, I'm putting my banking head on, if I'm confronted by a developer and a contractor and an architect, say, which is usually what I was confronted with, whether it be retail, commercial or corporate level. So anything from a £100,000 development up to, a £200 million development or more, doesn't matter. If I'm confronted with three of those who say, well, this is what we've done, Carl, here's the development appraisal, here are the costs, etc., 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 that's fine. If as a banker I was given this kind of information and made aware of this type of technology that has this collaborative edge to it, and I know that a project manager with the client and anybody else that wants to tip up says to me, Carl, here it is, here's the 3D model, we can take you through this. It also highlights the program, it gives you the whole of life costs above and beyond this, it gives you the material cost, it breaks it down to the nth degree, how much do you want? And I'm sat with my QS or my project manager or both, and they're saying, there are fewer risks in this presentation than there was in the previous presentation for a similar development on a similar site. Which one am I going to go with? Well, as a banker, automatically I'm going to go with the one with less risk, because that's what I see, that's what I understand, that's tangible. I can see that. I'm more inclined then to lend you more money, or in this current environment, lend you any money whatsoever, which is the case. You may well laugh, but that's the fact of the matter at the moment. So in terms of a business case, from a banking perspective, financing perspective, it's there. That takes you on to warranties and insurances, the legal side. Well, again, if you've reduced the risk and you've got a more collaborative approach to this development, whatever it be, whether it be refurb or new build, then again, if you're reducing the risks, it reduces the risks for insurers. It reduces the risk of legal problems going down the line because you've addressed a lot more of the issues up front, like baking a cake. It's there for you on a plate in one very sophisticated tool, which is only going to grow.
The practice that can make an offer to deliver a project more efficiently is making a commercial offer and can presumably charge a rate appropriate to the benefit of that offer.
You know and I know that the biggest risk ordinarily in any development is in the ground. So why not have a step procedure when it comes to insurance? Let's have an insurance policy where you pay a premium for two sets of works, one in the ground and one above. If you're comfortable with what's going to happen above because you're using new technologies and you've got this collaborative approach, then have two separate policies. Or have one policy which just has a step change and reduces as and when you get closer to finishing. Now, again, the insurers are going to make less money, but in the long term, clearly, but they're also going to have fewer issues, fewer white elephants or potentially empty buildings if people aren't building it right. So they'll be happy. These insurers are also, more often than not, pension providers and have huge asset bases themselves, huge estates that they have to manage. So they also need to understand all this. So they're not immune to this. I mean, insurance companies operate out of assets. They operate assets in order to feed their profits. So why won't they want to be part of this and understand it and benefit from it at the same time?
The workload of an architect traditionally and recently has been extremely back-end loaded in a project. It's been, you spend 30 or 40% of your fees up to clearing stage D, and because if you've spent more than that, you will go bust because of all the huge workload involved in production drawings, tendering, and managing all the queries that come on site. Frankly, that is on the way out. All that back-end stuff is going to disappear into the machine. Once you've made your model, which you will have made at stage DE, the drawings don't need drawing, the schedules don't need scheduling, and the queries from the site dry up because they answer themselves. And the result of that is a vast redistribution of resources. It's going to be cheaper, it's going to be a lot quicker, it's going to be a lot safer. There's a vast amount of risk taken out. All those things which you got sued for very probably aren't going to be there anymore because it's the sheer badness of the information that we have normally produced. Where the engineer's drawings don't fit ours, forget about that. Where stuff arrives on site manufactured that does not fit, forget about that. It's going to be a much safer, less adversarial world in which you can concentrate much more on the front end where architects really do create the value, getting the brief out, getting a concept that works for everybody, working with the suppliers to get the thing absolutely right. And it's an enormously less drudgery-filled world and an enormously less risky world. And I think the character of being an architect will change. You won't have to be so not in the stomach, fearful all the time. For me, that's probably the most important change, that it's actually going to be nicer to work in as an industry.
Well, I think it's a lot of common sense, actually. Don't get frightened off by the BIM word. A lot of it is thinking strategic about things, but doing them slightly differently. In other words, you're testing and building the design early on. There's a lot more work to be done early on. Hopefully pays dividends later on. Lots of complications and issues with that, but anybody who's been in their own business for a long while knows the difficulties of trying to get things right and all the problems of the current system. So I don't think it's a real approach to working. It's not the technology of BIM's the issue here, it's the approach to working. And I can imagine even those long-tooth folk, and I count myself as one of those, as we may never be the really get on the whole CAD and BIM bandwagon, technology speaking. We need to understand the process and how it works, and how we can deliver it to make it happen. So even if BIM is a way of thinking, I think of it that way.
There are a lot of people that buy into the marketing spiels that they get from the software companies, and they come away believing that BIM is something that it's going to be able to do the work for them. You're going to push a button, the computer's going to figure it all out. That's not true. You still have to put in the work. We are doing things that we were always doing. For example, clash detection of building systems during pre-construction is a great example of that. We have software that at the push of a button can find all the conflicts between geometries. Well, that's a heck of a lot more accurate than looking at a plot over a light table and comparing it. But at the end of the day, it's a process that still needs to be managed. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to be responsible for tracking what the issues are and coming up with the solutions. So in a sense, it adds work, because before we were missing a bunch of stuff that wasn't getting resolved. Now we're finding them all, and we have to find solutions for all of those. So it's adding work, but we are doing it in a more efficient way, and we're ending up with a better product. So from that standpoint, yes, people can get way too overconfident and think that it's going to solve everything, and it doesn't. You still have to pay attention and actually do the work. And it requires skilled operators and skilled modelers to be able to work properly.
I think it's that the efficiencies are for the client, and that BIM will bring on us a different way of working, which is to the benefit of the client, because there will be less waste in the conflict between the various solutions that the individual consultants bring. The delivery of the design will be quicker and more efficient. That's the efficiency. So the architect, possibly will see less of revision of work in the light of what engineering have produced, but actually it's the offer to the client that's the clear message. We, as a design team, can offer a much better way of working to deliver a project more efficiently.